Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
Colin was already halfway through his pitch when Mr. Hiroshi Takeda lifted a hand. Calm, polite, like he was about to ask where the coffee was. But no, he said, in that same soft voice. We've been watching the entire system build through the surveillance layer your team installed. Since February, the room shifted, not physically, but something cracked in the silence, like air escaping a pressurized seal. Ironvale's C-suite froze. 7 people in tailored suits and $1,000 shoes, and all of them slowly turned their eyes to me, then to Colin, then back to me. Colin's face dropped half a shade, just enough to notice if you were looking. I was. His mouth twitched, then landed in a smile, practiced and thin. I didn't move, just watched. If they wanted the truth, it was coming. And not the polished version either. They'd get the raw cut. Who built it? Who nearly wrecked it? And who thought hiding behind buzzwords would be enough? Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. I trust you remember, Mr. Takeda went on. Surveillance functionality was part of your proposal. Embedded video, access logs, system monitoring. We've had live feeds since deployment of the prototype unit. His eyes flicked to me, then back to Colin. It's been illuminating. Colin kept his voice smooth. Of course, Hiroshi. We've always been fully transparent. He clicked to the next slide. My architecture diagram, my dam layout. I could still see the little notes I'd left in the margins, now photoshopped into his branded deck. He said, our strategic vision included multi-layer telemetry from the start. Number. Your strategic vision was steak dinners and pretending to understand the control stack. I was the one who soldered the damn bus line by hand when the vendor module failed. I was the one who wrote the predictive algorithm after 3 all-nighters and a stress nosebleed. My phone buzzed. Alyssa. I didn't check it, just glanced at the preview. This is your moment, babe. Like she had any idea what was actually playing out. HR was here, Linda Voss, playing it cool, flipping open a binder like this was just another quarterly review. Our CFO, Valerie Stone, adjusted her collar and looked straight past Colin like she didn't even know him. She used to kiss his ass every chance she got. Today, she was already on the next train. Have you reviewed the development history section, Mr. Mercer? Mr. Takeda asked, deadpan. Absolutely, Colin said. Our documentation is thorough. My team ensured everything was clean. Another slide flipped. Another piece of my work, rebranded in Mercer Blue. I could feel my jaw clenching. I didn't speak. Not yet. I reminded myself, don't jump in early. Let the client go first. Let them show what they have, then fill in the parts they don't know about. My name is Nolan Pierce. I'm 34. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. I wrote the predictive engine and control spine this room is clapping for. And today's the day the credits get fixed. I sat back in my chair and watched the screen light up, ready to answer for my work, and ready to watch Colin answer for his. Colin didn't say a word after the meeting. Not to me, not to legal. Just walked out like it wasn't his blood soaking the carpet. But we're not there yet. You want to know how I got the knife in my hand? I'd been at Ironvale a little over 4 years by then. The guy people called when things went sideways, when an integration puked data or a plant controller started rebooting mid-shift and no one could explain why. I didn't sell ideas. I made them work. Quietly. Colin Mercer showed up about 18 months after I did. Came in polished like a used Tesla, MBA from somewhere expensive. Strong jaw, good teeth, firm handshake. He didn't know how to write a for loop, but damn if he couldn't kill in a room. He was good at remembering names, repeating buzzwords, and using strategic like it was punctuation. When Shinrai's RFP dropped, I read it twice, circled 3 points in red, and walked straight into his office. They wanted a full-stack automation platform, robotics control, AI predictive analytics, real-time line balancing, safety compliance monitoring, the works. $12.5 million budget, 7-month delivery window. It wasn't just big. It was stupid big. I can do it in 5.5, I told him, if we build around OptiCore. He blinked. Your what? My side project. The scheduler I've been refining for batch ops. It can scale if we rebuild the frame. He leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head like he was already counting the bonus. Let me handle the pitch. Next day, my architecture deck was gone from my drive, replaced with a cleaned-up version. Same bones, same layout, different color scheme and logo. I watched him present it to the execs like it was the second coming. Called it our plan. Told them I'd be lead implementer. That he'd handle the relationship with Shinrai. Back home, Alyssa and her mom were on a warpath. We'd been eyeing a 3-bed townhouse over in Shoreview. Nice backyard, new appliances, 30-year fixed. The deposit was $42,000. Her mom, Denise, sat me down over dinner and asked what my timeline was to be director level. Not if. When. You've got the brains, she said, sipping Pinot like it made her more correct. But brains don't buy houses. Titles do I told them I'd earn it the right way. Ship the product, earn the performance bonus, show what I built. Alyssa just sighed and said, sometimes you have to play politics to keep a roof over your head. I didn't argue. I just nodded, went upstairs, and opened a new repo, blank slate. I pushed the first commit at 1:17 a.m., named the project Shinrai Spine. Not dramatic, just fact. That was the moment I stopped hoping Colin would share credit. I knew better. He was already calling it his strategy in executive reviews, and when he asked me to polish up the plumbing for his investor slide deck, I smiled and said sure. Then I wrote the core logic with a comment header that included my name, the date, and the hash of the parent commit. Every file. I wired the surveillance spec into the base design. Not because I was planning revenge, but because the spec called for it. It was supposed to track personnel and equipment activity for safety compliance. So I built it tight. Cameras, logs, timestamps, badge scans, even an optional audio flag I could manually enable during testing sequences. Nothing hidden. It was all in the onboarding paperwork. The facility had a monitoring clause, and I made sure it stayed legal. But yeah, I also made sure it stayed accurate. Full fidelity, no edits. Colin didn't even notice. He'd pop in once or twice a week, snap a picture of my whiteboard, then ask me to boil down what you're thinking into 3 bullet points he could use for his status updates. I stopped bothering to explain anything past surface level. He didn't care. He just wanted language that looked good on slides. I told Takeda's team you'd send over the technical sheets, he said one afternoon, waving his phone at me like a scepter. Keep it light. Focus on the AI stuff. Which AI stuff? You know, the smart parts. I just nodded. Smart parts. Got it. I looped in no one, legal, HR, nobody. I just kept building. I took OptiCore and reshaped it, modularized the prediction layer, hardened the fail-safes, built out the robotics bus, and calibrated it to Shinrai's older hardware specs, because I knew they wouldn't replace every arm. Colin had no idea what half those acronyms meant, and I stopped explaining them after the 3rd time he said, just keep it stable. I remember Alyssa asked me once, do you really trust Colin? No, I said, and didn't say anything else. That should have been a warning, but she didn't push. Probably figured I was just being stubborn. I wasn't. I was being careful. Omar Reyes, our QA guy, asked me one night while I was rewiring the bench node, why the hell do you keep labeling everything like it's evidence? Because one day it might be. He just looked at me, half laughed, and went back to his test scripts. The weird part is, I didn't hate Colin. I didn't even care if he wanted to talk pretty and collect applause. But the second he started calling my build his brainchild to external teams, that was when I stopped documenting for internal reviews and started documenting for court. Looking back, it was simple. I didn't make the surveillance system to catch anyone. I made it so there'd be no questions later. No way for someone to pretend they wrote what they didn't. And deep down, yeah. I think I already knew I'd need it. By the end of the first month, I had a second toothbrush at the office and a fresh shirt hanging behind the lab door. 16-hour days weren't the exception. They were the rhythm. Cold pizza, half-warm coffee, my spine locked like rebar, and a cot in the corner when my neck seized too tight to drive home. I started with the controller bus. Colin said we could use a third-party SDK, but I'd already tested it. Couldn't handle mixed task loads without choking, so I built it from scratch. Low-latency switchback logic, hardware agnostic, buffered failover in case any arm stalled out during multi-step execution. Next came the data lake. Structured, versioned, auto-pruned for duplicate load paths. Colin wanted a spreadsheet view for exec visibility. I gave him a dashboard with just enough color to keep him from asking questions. The adaptive layer was harder. Needed to bridge factory floor response times with predictive outputs running hot from OptiCore. I tuned it until it could handle conflict resolution between 3 concurrent task managers without locking up. Colin never even asked what adaptive concurrency meant. Just said it sounded smart and added it to his talking points. And the surveillance features? I wired them in clean. Not hidden, not buried, just part of the system. Video, access logs, commit timestamps, and audio capture locked behind a manual flag I could control. It was part of the original RFP. Shinrai wanted personnel efficiency and safety tracking. I just made sure it worked exactly as promised. The lab had signage, same as the rest of the facility. Consent forms were standard. No one asked questions because no one paid attention. But I kept audio off by default, only ran it during flagged test sequences when I needed to capture verbal callouts for sequence validation. Colin? He showed up maybe twice a week. Would stroll in wearing his quarter zip and watch me from the doorway like he was observing a zoo exhibit. Snap a photo of my screen, ask for bullet point insights, then head off to sync with Takeda's team, which somehow always meant a steakhouse. Need me to jump in on anything? He asked once, phone already in his hand. You know C++? He laughed. You're killing it, man. Just give me 3 digestible wins and a challenge we're crushing. You know the drill. He was out the door before I could say, multi-threaded arbitration layer. Around that time, Linda Voss from HR started poking in. First it was small things. Just keep Colin in the loop. Then it got weirder. All system updates should copy Colin for continuity. Continuity, my ass. Denise, Alyssa's mom, plays tennis with Linda. That little country club circle ran deeper than I liked. I didn't argue. I just mirrored my repo every night and pushed hash-anchored logs to a public timestamping service. No one told me to. I just did it. Omar Reyes, Q, a lead, sharp guy, pulled me aside one night while we were both scarfing vending machine pretzels. You seen the maintenance logs? He asked, chewing like he hadn't eaten in 12 hours. Not today. Why? There's a guy poking around graveyard shift. Marty Sloan. Maintenance, officially. But he's also a union rep, not a fan of cameras. He's been talking to floor workers. I leaned back against the fridge. He messing with the equipment? Not yet. But he's looking at cable runs and muttering about surveillance abuse. Thought you'd want a heads up. I thanked him. Then that night, I checked the lab feed timestamps. 2 motion triggers during the night window. No scheduled maintenance. I made a note. Meanwhile, Alyssa kept pushing. Just take the strategic lead title, she said. It's still your work. Colin can handle the politics. You need a win right now, not a hill to die on. I told her, a fake win isn't a win. It's a leash. She rolled her eyes. Don't blow the mortgage over pride. I didn't answer. I just went back to the test room and patched the fault tolerance tree. Every morning, I checked the logs before I opened my IDE. Every night I backed up everything. Code, commits, test footage, hash trees, timestamp anchors, even my daily whiteboard photos. I started keeping a logbook in my backpack. Call it paranoia, call it process. Either way, it was mine. The weird thing, the grind didn't kill me. It kept me straight. The math lined up. The system stopped jittering. Failures got shorter. Error deltas tightened. Over time, the whole thing started to move like a living thing, with nerves, reflexes, and muscle memory. I wasn't babysitting components anymore. I was shaping reactions. That's the part people like Colin never get. Systems talk back, if you listen. Some nights I'd look up from the bench and realize I hadn't heard another voice in hours. Everyone else was gone. Building dark. Parking lot empty. Just me, the buzz of the fan racks, and the faint blink of standby LEDs. The cameras noticed too. They saw who did the work, who entered at 6:40 a.m. and left at midnight, who ran test passes 4 times because the third had a variable drift, who sat cross-legged on the floor with a voltmeter when the spindle arm reported a false idle. They also saw who dropped in, took a photo, and walked out with a steakhouse reservation. But the system didn't care about steak. It cared about precision, integrity, proof. And every single night, I made sure it had all 3. I knew something was off the second I heard Colin say it out loud on the call. I conceived the architecture, he told Shinrai's product lead, smooth as ever. The foundation was my idea. We built everything around my original vision. He didn't pause, didn't blink. Just rolled into some crap about multi-phase modular alignment like it was gospel. The worst part? Shinrai's team nodded along. I could hear them agreeing, taking notes, treating him like he was some kind of technical messiah. I sat there muted, listening to my work get repackaged with his fake acronyms and buzzwords. He was convincing. I'll give him that. If I didn't know the truth, I might have bought it too. A day later, I saw what he meant by cleaning up the commit summaries. He'd been copying my update notes, stripping out my name, rewriting the language, and sending them up the chain with executive polish. All the fingerprints gone. Just the pretty words and a delivered by strategic lead footer. Then the CFO, Valerie Stone, sent down a new policy. No new hardware purchases without Colin's approval. She framed it as cost control. I smelled something else. I checked our latest procurement trail. 2 purchase orders stuck out. Same line items I'd spec'd, but double the markup. Funneled through a vendor I didn't recognize. I ran a quick public search. The sister vendor address matched a residential P.O. box in Maple Grove. No business site, no tax records. But the name was tied to a holding LLC, with ties to one of Valerie's extended relatives. It stunk. A few days later, HR dropped a doc on my desk. Linda Voss, acting like it was just routine. We're having everyone sign updated IP agreements for alignment, she said. The addendum had one line that stopped me cold. Breach penalty, $150,000. I left it unsigned, slid it under my keyboard, and walked out. Omar caught me in the hallway later that night. His eyes were wide. Hey, not sure if it's anything, but I was in Linda's office earlier. Her laptop was open. I swear I saw your Shinrai draft deck on her screen. That's not possible, I said, though I already knew it was. He hesitated. Unless you sent it to her directly. I didn't. I sent it to Alyssa. Just Alyssa. I walked into our kitchen that night like a ghost. Alyssa was pouring wine. The TV was on, muted. Hey babe, she said. Did you see the edits I made to your presentation? I had Mom proof it, and she said, You what? I forwarded it. Just to Mom. She catches stuff. Typos, formatting. You know she used to edit. You sent my draft deck to Denise? She's trying to help Nolan. She said she might even show it to someone she knows. Linda, maybe. Just to make sure it aligns with what they expect. Why are you freaking out? I said nothing. Stepped onto the porch and sat until my breath steadied. Later that week, Denise invited us to dinner. Homemade lasagna, wine, smiles that felt rehearsed. She brought up Colin like it was nothing. He's really stepping into leadership, she said, and he's been such a champion for your work, hasn't he? I stayed quiet. You know, ladders work better when you climb them, she added, not when you try to kick them out from under people. That line stayed with me longer than it should have. The next day, IT sent me an email saying my repo access had been adjusted for system security compliance. I opened my permissions console, read only across the main branch. Colin's name was listed as project admin. He didn't even try to hide it. I still had access to the mirror repo I'd encrypted and stored off-site months ago. Build redundancy, I'd told myself back then. Funny how sometimes paranoia and foresight look the same. By now, Colin had dropped the whole partner act. He just barked orders like a boss who thought he'd already won. "Can you send me demo-ready screens by Thursday?" he asked, barging into my lab space like it was his. I added some notes. "Just copy those into the UI overlay." I looked up from my console. "You want me to build your talking points into the product?" He shrugged. "It's optics. Just make it easy for the client to follow." "High-level stuff. Leave the weeds out." I nodded. No fight left in me that day. Just noise. The system, though. The core was alive. Predictive engine tuned, fail-safes humming, robotics bus synced. Even the adaptive logic was tighter than spec. Everything I had, I put into that build. And still, none of it was mine. Not officially. Not yet. A week out from the final demo, I stood in the empty lab, watching the outputs flow clean across the screen, and knew I had a choice. I could hope someone upstairs figured it out. Hope the client asked the right question. Hope the credit came back around. Or I could wire a fuse. Something permanent. Something that didn't need politics or performance reviews to speak for me. I remembered what I told Alyssa. A fake win's just a leash. And I remembered what Omar said about the slides, what Valerie had done with procurement, what Linda tried to slip under my pen, what Colin took, word for word, keystroke for keystroke, and claimed as his own. Hope doesn't archive logs. I flipped open my notebook and started sketching a trigger. Not for sabotage, for proof. Because if they wanted to burn the whole thing down and take the credit on their way out, they were going to trip the wire on the way. I stayed in the lab that whole weekend, Friday to Tuesday morning, sleeping on the cot, living off Red Bulls and protein bars, watching my simulation environment hammer itself into failure and recover in tighter loops each pass. I hadn't seen the sun in 3 days, but I didn't care. At 2:40 a.m. Tuesday, the optimizer hit 94.8% predictive accuracy under full mixed load conditions. Failures projected 26 days out with traceable cause trees. It wasn't just working, it was surgical. I watched the plot stabilize, ran the validation pass one more time, then just sat there, hands on the desk, screen glowing like a campfire, chest tight from holding my breath. It was the crown jewel, the thing they all said couldn't be done in under a year. I did it in 5.5 months, exactly like I said. Built around my own damn side project. Inside a company that tried to bury me behind a guy with a nice smile and a steakhouse rewards card. A few hours later, Colin walked in, holding a smoothie like he'd just come from hot yoga. He glanced at the screen, saw the plot, and nodded like he'd seen it coming. "Exactly what I had in mind," he said. No hesitation, no irony. I didn't answer, just clicked the mouse and killed the screen. He didn't notice the line graph was still saving behind the scenes. Once he left, I got to work on the fuse. First, I exported 6.5 months of raw data. Video time-lapse from the lab cameras, commit hashes, keystroke deltas, biometric badge logs, and Git push timestamps. I wrapped it all in a package labeled Development History and embedded it inside the system documentation tree where no one would touch it by accident. But this time, I added a lock. It could only be opened by someone using a Shinrai-issued employee token with an internal access key. That meant Takeda's team. No one from Ironvale could fake it. Then I anchored the hash of the entire archive to a public time-stamping ledger. Again, not the first time, but this time it included everything. Full coverage. If anyone tampered with even a frame, the hash would break. Anyone who understood basic integrity validation would see it. After that, I built the appendix. It wasn't long, just enough. Select email threads. The forwarded draft from my inbox to Alyssa's, from Alyssa to Denise, from Denise to Linda Voss. And then the screen captures. Linda reviewing it on her laptop during an off-site My metadata was baked in. Source file path, timestamp, and security tag. No room for debate, no room for spin. Then I wrote the watchdog. It lived silently behind the admin panel. The second someone created a new admin account or renamed a critical system file, it would trigger a snapshot of the environment and email it directly to a third-party escrow I'd set up under a private dev trust account. Nothing would alert the intruder. No pop-ups, no emails. But the proof would be captured, time-stamped, and sent out before they even knew what went wrong. I even added a small note to the manifest. Tamper triggers have been enabled for system integrity purposes. That was for the lawyers. Then I built a separate folder and dropped in screenshots of the weird POSI found under Valerie's name. Same product specs, different vendors, 20 to 40% markups, routed through the sister vendor address in Maple Grove. I didn't know exactly where that trail ended, but I knew how it smelled. Once it was all done, I wrote one sentence in the README header of the archive. Please review this section during demo delivery using the last 4 digits of your employee ID. Then I opened the email Mr. Takeda had given me the first week of kickoff. Use this if you ever need to escalate. And I pasted the same sentence into the body. No attachments, no details, just that one line. I hit send. It was 7:12 p.m. I put my phone on silent, shut down the lab terminal, and finally walked out to my car for the first time in 2 days. The drive home was quiet. My eyes burned. My back was on fire. My brain felt like it was running in low power mode, just enough left to keep me from veering into a ditch. When I got home, Alyssa was on the couch, scrolling through Pinterest. Our shared board was up, future home cozy plus modern. Dining sets, light fixtures, backsplash tiles we couldn't afford yet. She looked up when she saw me. "Hey, how'd it go?" she asked. "Did the engine work?" "It's done," she smiled. "That's amazing. I knew you'd pull it off. Mom said someone at her club knows someone at Takeda's office. She said you should help Colin polish his demo deck before Thursday. Apparently it's important to show a united front." I stared at her. "Alyssa, did you ever forward anything else to your mom?" She blinked. "Just the one deck. Why?" "She shared it with HR." "She was helping," she said, her voice dipping into that defensive tone I'd started to hate. "She thought it'd help you look polished." "You're not a deck guy, Nolan. You're the code guy I had no answer left in me." I took a shower, then sat in the bedroom staring at my phone. A new message buzzed in. Colin, _Mercer, _shared. Final demo v 12.pptx. I didn't open it. I laid back in bed and stared at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come easy, but eventually it came. All I remember from that night was dreaming of loading bars and hash values, red lines on a clean graph, and the soft robotic voice from my debugger saying, "Pass complete. No errors." The system pinged at 12:41 a.m. Not loud, just a single short vibration on the phone I kept face down on the bench. I unlocked the screen, thumbed into the Watchdog log, and felt my chest get tight. Someone had authenticated into the lab 38 minutes ago. Off hours. Badge scan registered as Sloan Marty, a maintenance contractor with no reason to be in that room past shift end, and definitely no access to version control. But there it was. Attempted rollback on the test bench. Targeted image time-stamped 2 weeks prior. Full override request, pending file replacement. That wasn't an accident. That was a surgical hit. I jumped up, grabbed my laptop, and pulled the video feed. There he was, Marty, shoulders hunched, walking fast, not even wearing his usual coveralls. Plain hoodie, jeans, badge clipped to a lanyard that didn't belong to him. He passed the north camera, ducked his head like it mattered, and walked straight to the main terminal. 2 angles caught him. One showed him knocking over the corner camera with his shoulder. Clumsy. The other caught everything. Hands on the keyboard, mouse clicks. Him typing out a login string that was too fast, too confident. Not his. I checked the logs again. The remote session came in at 12:26 a.m., VPN token ID, Valstone0206. Valerie, our CFO, the one working from home sick all week. I didn't flinch, I didn't curse, I didn't call anyone. I launched a patch sequence and locked the rollback pathway behind a single-use hash I'd written for this exact scenario. The Delta was safe, but that wasn't enough. I needed more than a block. I needed the receipt. I restored the latest test bench image, then injected a thermal noise signature watermark into the snapshot, unique to that moment, that config, that file set. Embedded just below the visual detection threshold, detectable only with the right key, unforgeable. That's the thing about sabotage. If you're going to catch someone, it's not enough to prove what changed. You have to prove exactly when it changed, who was touching it, and why no one else could have. The camera footage looped back in my feed. Marty squinting at the screen, trying to figure out where the rollback log went. His brow furrowed. You could see the panic rising when the screen didn't give him what he came for. I saved the clip, encrypted it, sent it to the escrow tied to the development history package. Then I opened Slack and pinged Omar. "Need you to log something for me," I wrote. "Cue a tag only. No CCS. Don't send to Linda." "Should I be worried?" he replied, a minute later. "Yes, but not for long." He logged the incident with a nondescript label. Anomalous access pattern. Post-hours review requested. Clean, quiet, buried under layers of backlog where it wouldn't get flagged or accidentally lost. I leaned back in the lab chair and stared at the time. Almost 2 a.m. My phone buzzed again. Alyssa. She'd sent a picture, flower arrangements on a Pinterest board captioned, "What do you think for tomorrow's big day?" I didn't respond. I locked the screen, flipped the phone over, and got back to work. By 3:10 a.m., the system was tighter than it had ever been, fully validated, restored. No noise in the logs, no rollback shadows. The watermark sat embedded in the image like a fingerprint no one could wipe off. And the sabotage? It was gift-wrapped. A full set of receipts I never asked for, but was damn sure going to use. Before I left, I opened my backpack and pulled out the notebook. Same one I'd been keeping since the first commit. I flipped to a clean page and wrote down every timestamp from that night. Badge scan, remote session, rollback attempt, thermal marker, camera fall. 1 line per event, all sharp, all logged. Ink doesn't glitch, ink doesn't fail to sync. Ink tells the truth when people don't. I zipped it up, plugged in my backup drive one last time, and forced a push to the off-site mirror. Then I set 2 alarms, one on my phone, one on the emergency debug tablet I kept under the bench. Belt and suspenders. Walking to my car, I expected to feel angry, or maybe rattled, but I wasn't either. I was calm, laser clear. They weren't just playing dirty now. They were desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. At home, the place smelled like lavender candles and starch from fresh pillowcases. Alyssa had set out a shirt I'd only worn once and a tie I never liked. The counter had a fresh-pressed linen napkin over a box from that pastry place she loved. Little note on top. "Tomorrow we win." I sat on the edge of the bed, stared at it all, and said nothing. No fight left tonight. No words worth wasting. When I finally laid down and closed my eyes, it wasn't fear I felt. It wasn't rage. It was something simpler. No more talking around my work. By the time I walked into the boardroom, my palms were dry. Not sweaty, not shaking. Just dry like the inside of my throat. Cold air, polished table, 12 highbacks lined up like a jury. Shinrise team on the left. Iron Veil's execs on the right. 2 outsiders behind laptops near the door, typing in near silence. Not our people. Colin stood at the head, talking like he'd trained for this moment since birth. "Our vision was always about alignment," he said, smiling like a guy closing a real estate deal. "We knew predictive automation couldn't be bolted on. It had to be native to the spine." He advanced the deck. He called it the Mercer method. The room didn't blink, not yet. But I saw Takeda raise his hand before Colin could get to his next slide. Calm, polite. Same look he'd had in that first client kickoff meeting. Reading every room, not just the screen. "May I ask," Takeda said, "why your team used a hybrid optimizer rather than a classical machine learning regression model for dealing with sensor drift?" Colin smiled, just a little too wide. Great question. The hybrid approach let us reduce training complexity while maintaining model interpretability, and that, Takeda cut him off. Still polite, still cold. I'd like to show something, he said, already typing on his tablet. From the development history section. He used his employee code to unlock the archive. The screen behind him lit up. Everyone turned. Colin froze mid-sentence. Time-lapse footage rolled. Weeks collapsed into seconds. Me, alone in the lab. Sun going up, going down. Coffee cups stacking. Whiteboards filling up. Code windows open, close, open again. Tests running, failing, passing. Me again. Always me. Colin popped up now and then, camera phone in hand, strolling through, taking pictures. Never touching the keyboard. Never staying longer than 10 minutes. Then came the graph. A clean side-by-side breakdown. 2,612 hours of lab activity under my badge. 96 under Colin's. His were mostly calendar invites and lunch meetings. Next to that, my commit logs, full hashes, anchored to public timestamps. Verified entries, one after another. Dates, authorship, system components. Someone near the end of the table cleared their throat. Colin didn't move. Takeda tapped again. Another clip loaded. Marty Sloan, from the night before, in my lab. Same hoodie. Shoulder knocking over the camera. Other angle catching him logging in. Clear view of the keyboard and the borrowed admin credentials. Another window showed the VPN tunnel. Token ID, Valstone-0206. Valerie's device. You could have heard a damn pin drop. Linda from HR finally found her voice. I believe we need to pause this review. That footage cannot be used without proper consent, and it is our facility, Takeda said. Our system. Our surveillance agreement. Your signatures are on the original compliance documents. We have full operational access under contract. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I glanced at the screen. Alyssa. Hey, everything okay? I let it sit. The video paused on a screenshot. Email headers, red arrows tracing the path. My draft deck, sent from my inbox to Alyssa's, then to Denise, then to Linda. The reply from Linda, looks great. I'll clean it up for the review deck. Takeda turned to me. Mr. Pierce, he said, would you please come up? My legs felt like concrete. I stood anyway. My knees weren't shaking, but they wanted to. I walked to the front of the room. He asked 3 technical questions. I answered clean, not fast, not slow, just enough. Colin tried to interrupt. If I could add context to... Valerie cut in, voice sharp. Don't talk. That ended it. I looked straight at Takeda. For the record, I said, I never signed the IP addendum. The optimizer core I used is based on a pre-employment framework I wrote years ago. It's licensed, not owned. By me, Valerie turned pale. Her lips tightened like she'd bitten a lemon. The room was dead quiet. Takeda looked to Iron Veil's CEO, old school guy in a suit that probably cost more than my car. Takeda asked him one question. We prefer builders leading builds. What does Iron Veil plan to do about the discrepancy? The CEO didn't answer. Not right away. He glanced at legal, then at Valerie, then at Colin. His mouth open, then closed. Silence lasted 20 seconds, maybe 30. That was long enough. Takeda didn't wait long. After the room cleared and Iron Veil's legal team started whispering behind the glass wall like a damage control committee, he walked up to me, calm as ever, and handed me a sealed folder. Official offer, he said. We would like you to lead our new North America Innovation Lab. Full build authority. You name the team, inside. 385,000 base, equity package, relocation budget I never asked for. No pitch, no back and forth, just a number and a start date. I held it in my hands, barely listening, as Iron Veil's CEO tried to stumble his way into a response. We'd like to retain Nolan under a new role. Director of Systems. Full scope of authority. Of course I didn't bother looking at him. If there's a deal, I said, it needs 3 things. 1. Full technical autonomy. 2. Opticore stays mine. Licensed, not absorbed. And 3. Omar gets full credit and compensation for QA lead. The room didn't argue. They just nodded like they were scared not to. Colin tried to stand like he still had a seat at the table. Security was already on their way in. Legal whispered something to the CEO. Next thing I saw, Colin was packing his laptop into a messenger bag, not saying a word, just blinking like someone had unplugged him from the grid. Valerie stood, arms crossed, trying to act composed. "I'm shocked about the remote access token," she said. "I was homesick. I don't—" Takeda's deputy didn't even flinch. He spun his screen around and played a snippet of metadata logs. VPN session, timestamped, device ID match, admin token issued to Valstone 0206. Silence followed. Linda Voss leaned forward. "I didn't even read those forwarded emails," she said. "I just assumed they were internal prep material." The screen showed her reply again, plain as day. "Looks great. I'll clean it for executive review." She paused, then asked to step outside to make a call. No one told her yes. She just left. From the back of the room, Omar gave me a slow thumbs up. No smile, just a nod. We didn't need to say anything. We both knew what it took to survive this place. Heads down, code first, politics second. And still, some days you bleed anyway. My phone buzzed. Alyssa. Again. 3rd call since lunch. Then a message. "Mortgage rate lock expires Friday. Can we just talk about staying with Iron Vale?" "It's safer," I didn't answer. "Not yet." Takeda turned to Iron Vale's board. "We're willing to continue the contract," he said. "But only if Nolan leads the implementation under our umbrella. Otherwise, we'll consider the engagement compromise translation. You can keep the money, but only if you admit who actually built your product." Valerie tried to pivot. "We had no visibility on the vendor markups. That was procurement." "Your name's on the approval lines," one of the external directors said. "And the LLC address matches your cousin's residence. Do you deny that?" She opened her mouth, then shut it. Her face didn't turn red. It turned white. Nobody said much after that. They asked me for time, to think it over, to meet with HR, to find the right fit. I told them I'd let them know by the end of day tomorrow. Outside, the hallway was quiet. People looked away when I passed. By the elevator, I heard a voice I wasn't expecting. "Nolan." I turned. Denise. In a beige blazer, nails fresh, hair pulled tight like she was heading to a luncheon instead of a reckoning. "I know this got messy," she said, "but don't blow this. The Iron Vale offer is real. Director, benefits, stability. You don't walk away from that over a couple of mistakes." "You forwarded my work, Denise," I said. "I supported your career," she shot back. "So did Alyssa. We believed in you." "No," I said. "You believed in Colin. And you believed in control." She stepped toward me. "Don't blow this!" I didn't answer. Just turned when the elevator doors opened. Inside, I checked my phone again. More texts. Alyssa's name. 5 times in a row. I didn't tap a single one. That folder from Takeda weighed heavy in my bag, but not in a bad way. It felt earned, and for the first time in months, nobody was asking me to make someone else look smarter than they were. I signed Shinrai's offer 2 days later, with one line added in bold. Fixed-term partner lead, non-employee status. Iron Vale may subcontract only if team attributions remain intact. Their legal didn't blink. They just signed. The day I sent it in, I cleared out my desk at Iron Vale in silence. No send-off, no cupcakes. Just my laptop, my notebooks, and a backup drive I didn't need, but still brought anyway. Omar met me at the exit. He didn't say congratulations, just handed me a coffee and said, "Let's make it ours this time." We did. The townhouse plan died on the kitchen table that night. Alyssa called it self-sabotage. "You've got stability right in front of you," she said, holding the printout of the mortgage packet like it still meant something. You walked away from it for ego. I opened the email chain again on my phone. Her original message. Denise's passing it along. Linda's reply about cleaning it up. This, I said, holding the screen up, isn't how partners move. This is how people hedge bets. She crossed her arms. You're overreacting. My mom was trying to help you look polished. You don't understand how these rooms work? I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just packed a bag, grabbed the dog's leash, and walked out. I found a short-term rental 15 minutes from Shinrai's new saint. Paul office. Nothing fancy, just a working coffee maker and windows that opened without jamming. I canceled the engagement party and filed a chargeback for the $3,800 deposit. The venue tried to play hardball, but once the bank saw the paper trail, emails, invoices, the non-refundable clause tied to a date that hadn't happened yet, they sided with me. The funds hit my account 4 days later. Marty Sloan called me that same week, said he didn't want jail, said he never wanted to sabotage anything. Just needed to keep a paycheck while the automation wave swept through his shop. Someone gave me the credentials, he told me. Said it was just a rollback. Said no one would even notice. I didn't know it was wired like that. I told him I'd pass it up the chain. He met with Shinrai's compliance team and gave a full statement. No threats, no charges. Just a file with names, dates, and quotes. He's in their retrain program now, learning diagnostics and floor safety integration. Valerie announced a sudden leave of absence a week later. Health reasons. 3 days after that, she resigned quietly. The sister vendor trail got kicked to outside counsel. Bad sign if your name's anywhere in those invoices. Linda was suspended. Internal audit flagged 3 years of shady side deal memos and revised approval logs. I didn't ask what else they found. Denise stopped texting. I didn't miss it. Alyssa waited exactly 7 days, then sent one message. We should talk. I left it unanswered. There wasn't anything left to salvage. Instead, I brought Omar in as QA lead and made it official. First policy we wrote. Credit sticks to names, not titles. We printed it, taped it to the wall. We meant it. The new lab was smaller. Fewer desks, no cubicles. The coffee sucked, but the logs didn't lie. And no one tried to rewrite commit history to look important. We didn't do weekly PowerPoints. We built things that worked. We ran test passes late, pushed updates early, and signed every build with our real names. I slept like a human again, woke up without clenching my jaw, ate breakfast without checking my email 6 times. I wrote code that didn't need defending because no one was stealing it behind my back. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just building. On my own terms. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an apology for doing it right. 3 months in, Shinrai's CFO sent me a 1-line email with an attachment. The subject line just said, early numbers. The PDF showed what I already knew. Plant-wide line downtime had dropped by over 42%. Predictive alerts were being acted on faster than expected. Total savings, $4.6 million in the first quarter. I leaned back in my chair and let that sink in. No fireworks, no applause, just clean data doing its job. Ironvale still had a slice of the implementation work, as a subcontractor under me. The work went smooth because the right people were finally doing the right things. No one was rewriting commits. No one was staging strategic screenshots for the board. I got a letter from Ironvale Legal not long after. Nicely worded. Said the IP addendum oversight had been corrected for all future hires and they were reviewing past practices to ensure alignment. I didn't respond. I just printed it, stapled it to the back of my original employment packet, and filed it under a label I made myself. Doesn't apply. Collins LinkedIn took the slow death route, SVP strategy for a while, then consultant, then nothing. Last I heard, he was helping his cousin manage a parts warehouse somewhere in Bloomington. He emailed me once asking if I had bandwidth for a small alignment project. I read it twice, closed the tab, and never replied. Denise sent me an apology, or tried to. It read like something from a PR team, full of phrases like unintentional impact and deep appreciation for your contributions. I archived it without opening the attachment. Alyssa followed up with a text. A photo of a new listing. White fence, gray siding, bright front porch. Thought you'd like this one. Can we meet? I typed 3 words, deleted them. Then sent 1 sentence. I need clean air for a while. She didn't write back. Marty Sloan? He stuck around. Shinrai set him up with a spot in their retraining program. Controls and floor safety certs. He sent me a picture a few weeks later of his daughter's softball game. She was pitching. He was in the bleachers. His text said, "Thanks for not letting me burn." People change, especially when someone finally stops lying to them. Omar and I spent some late nights building a new kind of internal training. Not boring lectures. We used the surveillance backbone we'd built, on purpose this time. We pulled real sequences from real test passes, showed junior devs what an actual fix looks like when it breaks in the wild and gets pulled back from the edge. I kept 1 clip for myself. It lived on my personal drive. The time lapse from 2:40 a.m., the night I finished the predictive core. I looked like hell in it. Bag under my eyes, hoodie stretched out at the collar, 2 fingers on the mouse like I was steering a spacecraft with no oxygen left. The screen shows a single red line sloping into a clean curve. Then nothing. Silence. Success. No applause. Just work. You can hear the fans in the background if you turn the volume up. The hum of the lab. The room breathing. In the corner of the frame, there's a poster. Old, tacked up years ago. Colin's doing. It says, "Think like a leader." I used to look at that poster and wonder if I was supposed to become someone else. I don't wonder anymore. I don't think about leading. I build. I ship. I log everything and let the system speak for itself. And if someone needs proof of who did what, the machine already knows. Has your name ever been stolen at work? Take the counteroffer or walk away? Drop your answer below. If this hit, please like and subscribe. Huge for us. 1 click.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.